What's going on, Sea Bears? Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another installment of Geared Up, where we dive deep into the world of My Engineer and we look at the storyline, we look at the tropes, characters, actors, behind the scenes, all that stuff. So if you are interested, then stay tuned. My name is Jordan C, and welcome to the Sea Bear Army. If you are not a part of the Sea Bear Army already, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well as that bell notification so you know each and every time I upload, as well as leave a like and comment if you like these types of videos, if you like full reviews like this. And don't forget to follow me on social media at JordyC on Instagram and Twitter. Lastly, make sure you guys follow Jen, Jesse, and Lele. Jen has her own blog called BL Views and Reviews, and Lay and Jess have their own podcast called Thoughts on Why. Make sure you check out those as well. I will link everything below. And guys, let's get right into it. Today we're going to be talking about the storyline of episode 13, so I hope you're excited. Alright, so episode 13 had a lot going on. When I say a lot, I mean just mentally a lot going on. They did split a lot of the time between all four couples. I think the couple that probably got the least amount of time was Mech Boss, but honestly that's just because Mech Boss is probably one of the more stable relationships right now. We start off the episode with them setting the tone for the entire episode. We see Bon gets jealous of Doon because Doon and Frong have the same shirts, but the shirts were bought before Bon and Doon were a thing. But of course Doon didn't explain that, he just kind of glazed over it a little bit. We also see King's Gay Panic, which we see it in pretty much almost every episode, especially when Rom tries to have any type of advances towards him. But in this episode, we're gonna see it on full display a lot more than we usually do, and that's gonna come into play and that's gonna explain a lot of things. But we also see that his head injury, in my opinion, is probably more than what it is or what we see it as surface level, because I mean, of course he got hit in the head with something. The amount of times they focus on that specifically, not really the healing portion of it, of him just, you know, having the stitches and getting better, but they focus a lot on the fact that it bothers him so much, and it's getting worse. So I feel like that's gonna definitely come into play and it's gonna be a big factor maybe in the next episode. But right from the beginning we see that these are the two couples that they're going to be focusing mainly on, and Mech Boss is going to kind of be the one that takes the backseat in this episode, and then Tada Frong, we're going to get a lot of advancement with them as well. So almost immediately starting off, we see Bon's true character just come out and just be there, just be alive, just be in the forefront. When they make their way to the waterfall, Bon is already kind of upset with Doon. He's playing a game, but here we see that very manipulative behavior. He's trying to make Doon jealous so that he becomes a little bit more attached to him, which Doon falls for every single time. So because Bon has his panties in a knot, one of his friends enlists Doon to play a little joke on him. So Doon pushes him into the river, lake, waterfall, whatever you want to call it, you know, just as a little fun little prank. Water wasn't deep, you didn't get all wet. I mean, your shoes got wet, but I mean, you're the one who wore shoes to a waterfall. Everybody else took their shoes off before they got in there, but you know, it's whatever. But then Bon goes off on Doon, of course he goes off on Doon. He yells at him and he says that you don't care about my feelings. Where'd that come from? I mean, Doon is naive to a point, but I will say throughout the entire series, he has been consistent in being observant to Bon. Even though he falls for his little tricks all the time, he's been very observant to Bon. If anything, he could have immediately just been like, I'm not buying you no flowers ever again, ever, and just walked away. But he saw something in Bon that apparently attracted him, other than physical attraction, of course. But anyway, back to the point. Of course, Bon plays this card, Doon starts to apologize, and Then we go into this endless little cycle of back and forth with these guys. When it comes to King Ram's relationship in this episode, Ram is a little bit more aggressive in his attempts to protect King. Of course, King is a very smart, intellectual person, but he is very, very clumsy. We see Ram telling him, be very careful in this water, you have stitches, you might fall. And it's almost in the tone of a fatherly figure. Even though he doesn't speak at all in that interaction, you can see it in his face. It's almost like a fatherly figure, but at the same time, someone who just cares deeply for another person and something that is more on the side of love than parental. How do I even describe that? In a family light. This protective side comes in again when King actually slips and hits his head on a rock. And Ram basically drags him out of the water and is like, you can't play anymore. Like, no. And King is literally like, but I want to. Nope, you can't. You didn't listen to me the first time. It's too dangerous out here. But there, the show kind of establishes that Ram is literally going to be taking care of King this whole episode. That's going to be the situation we're going to see them in the most, as well as them kind of just getting a little bit closer. Now, our first huge problem, and probably the biggest issue in this entire episode, arises when Bond decides to take a walk after his little bout with Dylan. Decides to take a walk, and guess who shows up? Mind. Now, I don't think the show ever explicitly stated what Mind's relationship is to Bone, but what I've gathered is that he's just someone that liked him obsessively and looks like he will do anything to try to keep him away from others. He seems like a very jealous type, just like Bond, and he does not know when to back away. So now this is a very, very funny, like, the juxtaposition of Bone's personality and Mind's personality is hilarious, because in many ways I see Bond in Mind, and it's funny because I feel like Bond does not like Mind because he's literally I wouldn't say a copy, but he reminds him a lot of himself. Jealousy, possessiveness. And I mean, of course, Bond probably doesn't like Mind in that sense. Again, we are going off of just meeting Mind when he was in a cafe bathroom and homeboy just showed up. And then we meet him again here on this little trip, and literally no other context was given to us. So Mind ends up giving Bond some unwanted affection by kissing him. This is where in my body, in my soul, in my bones, I felt someone saw. And this is also a really common trope when it comes to not just BLs, but any type of movie media. There's always, you know, that person who has a significant other, and there is always this crazy ex or this other person or thing that intervenes, and there is some unwanted things that happen, some things that shouldn't have happened, and you know, the spouse of that person, either the spouse or like someone close to that person ends up seeing, and now we are just waiting for things to either be exposed or someone to say something about it, and then it creates a whole nother form of conflict other than what's going on in that person's head that this situation happened to. Next, we move back to King and Ram. So after the whole thing with King hitting his head on the rock and, you know, them making sure everything is taken care of, we see King just sitting on the edge of the waterfall, just minding his business, and then Ram comes in with this little cute little crown and puts it on his head. Now, at first I didn't really look anything into the little crown. I was like, Ram's just being sweet. But I feel like it's also symbolic of him knowing King. I mean, King is a very secluded person. He's very in tune with himself and in tune with those around him. He's very, very observant, which is funny that when I said he's very in tune with himself, because I feel like that is a contributing factor to why he's just denying these feelings for Ram, because it's something that is unknown to him. Even though he kind of made the advance first, he put himself in there at first. Whether it was being, you know, just a friend, or he just found Ram interesting, over time he did develop these feelings. And because he is so in tune with himself and those around him, and this foreign feeling that I assume he's never felt comes in, he does not know how to deal with it. And I feel like this is kind of a process for King. Whenever something like that happens, he rejects it and rejects it and rejects it, and then eventually, maybe this is just me looking at the silver lining of this cloud that's looming over my engineer, and he eventually will accept it once he figures it out. But his way of buying time to accept it is to very respectfully push whatever that feeling is coming from away, slowly but surely. But he pushes it away, but also keeps it close, if that makes any sense. A better way to explain it is far enough away to where he can observe the whole situation, but close enough to where he can still experience that feeling, but in the safety of his bubble. But anyway, Ram brings that crown. It's symbolic of King's love for plants, and I also feel like it is Ram's way of telling King, hey, I didn't mean to be so harsh, so pushy when it comes to your safety, but I do care for you, and that is why I'm being so protective of you right now. And also, if you notice, right before Ram brought the crown, King's head is bothering him again. This is probably the second time in the episode that King has had an issue with his head, and they've highlighted it by either having him only in the frame or having him the main focus of that scene. So again, I'm going to restate, I think that this head injury is going to be more than what we think it is on the surface level. Now, moving on to Frong and Tara, they have an interesting bonding point, because even though I don't think Frong knows that Tara's dad died. Of course, Tara knows Frong's dad is not with him anymore, but I don't think Frong knows about Tara's situation either. So their fathers become their bonding point. Of course, Frong loses his bracelet or necklace that his dad gave him, and of course we can see that he values that a lot because of the effort he puts in to trying to find it. And I feel that Tara wants to help him out the most, because when he finds out that that was something he got from his dad, Tara definitely, you can see the importance of that situation kind of tick up in his mind. Of course it was important to him before, but now it's definitely on the priority list for him. Now we come back to Mr. Bon and Doin. So Bon comes back from his little walk after his little issue, and he happens to run into Doin. Now this is where I immediately just kind of, I don't want to say, nope, yep, I'm gonna be honest about this, I wrote Bon off. Because if you notice, when Bon is walking up and Doin catches that he's there, right before Doin gets up, he kind of looks down and hesitates. And immediately when I was actually reacting to it, I was like, okay, Doin knows something. But the way, and just kind of his body language, the way he looked down and hesitated, I felt that he knew something about it, but he wanted to hear it from Bon. He wanted to hear it from Bon, and lo and behold, he gives him a chance to tell him what was going on. Doin starts asking questions like, hey, where were you? I was looking for you. I was looking for you. In my mind, and this is just me, not everybody thinks the same, so, or not everybody's mind functions the same way. But I don't think Bond picked up on that. Dune's like, where were you? You know, I was looking for you, which in my mind would have triggered, okay, if this happened to me and he was looking for me and we are in the same general vicinity, I probably should say something because maybe he saw something. But again, that's just me. Bond proceeds to kind of go on the defensive measure. And now it may very well have been him trying to buy time to kind of figure out how to say something to Dune, but I don't think that was his intention. And we get that confirmation when he talks to King, and he was basically saying that he wasn't going to say anything at all about the situation. He was going to keep it to himself. He was probably going to take that crap to his grave. And so that's the issue that I had with Bond in this entire episode. He just ignored it, and he was not going to say anything about it, even though it was eating him up inside. Again, Dune gave him the chance to say something, to come clean. Dune values trust. Trust over anything. We even see that when Rom went missing, and Rom didn't say anything about what the situation was. He just told Dune that he was safe, he was fine, and Dune proceeds to say, all I can do is trust him and know that he's alright. But basically, Bond just kind of goes back into this defensive measure, and he starts, you know, wondering why you're asking all these questions, which one pegs you to be guilty anyway, because you are very defensive about your boyfriend asking you, you know, where you been, you know, worried about where you went, you know, what happened, stuff like that, when he was probably trying to apologize, which he didn't need to, for, you know, pushing you into the waterfall because you were sucking the fun out of the situation. But what I also thought was interesting about their interaction in this scene was, I was thinking, okay, I was trying to find a way to sympathize with Bond in that situation and kind of put myself in his shoes. Dune values trust, correct? So Bond not saying anything in that moment kind of just breached Dune's trust with Bond. He immediately just was like, okay, he's not going to say anything. And I feel like Dune knows Bond to that point. Bond is very vocal and very upfront about who he is and how he operates. I feel, yes, Dune could have asked Bond exactly, you know, what was going on, what happened, or could have told him, hey, I saw Mind there and you guys were really, really close. But I feel like in Bond's mind, that might have been a breach of trust on Dune's part, where he's like, oh, you don't trust me? Bond might have immediately just kind of shut down, like, oh, you don't trust me, you don't trust that I didn't do anything wrong, are you accusing me of something, you know? So I feel like, in my opinion, Dune went the correct route. He gave Bond a chance to tell the truth. Bond didn't take that chance. Instead, he kind of just went back into his little shell and kept that information to himself. So there were a lot of people, there were a couple of different stances on the situation, especially on Twitter. I feel that Dune went the correct route and he did the right thing, because honestly, if you can't tell your significant other that some crap happened and clear your name before he finds out from someone else, you know. And again, he might have been buying time to tell him, but that wasn't the case, as we find out when he talks to King. Now, this is a little intermission. I would like to highlight, even though McBoss didn't get a lot of screen time specifically in this episode, I would like to highlight this. Stole the show. It just ties their relationship in really, really well. And I'm glad that they're just so comfortable with themselves that they don't care if anybody else sees, you know, a little boyfriend action, you know what I'm saying? But we did have a little bit of a thorn come back in the name of Fawn. Of course, she texted boss saying that the whole issue with her manager and, you know, him auditioning was probably a misunderstanding, and she wanted to talk to him. I really hope that this is kind of a one and done type of thing with, you know, boss. I hope that no, you know, previous feelings will arise, which, let's be honest, probably will, because he, you know, he genuinely liked Fawn. But I think he was also using that as a mechanism to get over Mech. So he's conflicted. And you can see it in his face when he sees the text from Fawn, and when she calls him the next day, you can see his face. He's very conflicted about the situation. But again, he doesn't tell Mech. But we're pretty sure Mech knows. Mech is very smart. Mech is very observant. We're pretty sure he knows what's going on. He's just waiting for boss to say something about it. So now we move forward to where Bond actually talked to King about what was going on with him and Dune, and King, with the infinite amount of wisdom he has, tells Bond that, hey, the way that Dune is treating you, like you don't exist, like you're not there, he's treating you like you guys aren't even boyfriends, and that triggers in his mind that Dune knows something. Process of elimination. He's like, Dune, I think he already knows, and it's better to tell him now and he be mad and he gets over it than to hold it and he finds out from someone else, which he's already found out. It's harder for him to forgive you. At this point, even though King has given him his words of wisdom and great advice, Bond missed his chance. Dune gave him a chance to say something about it, he didn't, and now the late advice of King prompts him to try to find Bond and reconcile, but it doesn't happen. Now, I will say, Bond tries to tell Dune, like during their little, where they were planting trees and stuff like that, but Dune just kind of goes away. He avoids Bond a lot. But honestly, can you blame him when, you know, you can't really trust that your boyfriend's gonna say anything anyway? So he just avoids him. Honestly, I don't think this is something that is really Dune's fault. I think people need to understand that this is something that's been building up. The possessiveness, the jealousy, the just very aggressiveness, and the alpha mentality that Bond has had in the relationship has been just a very toxic aspect of it, and Dune has been tolerating it. But with the lying and the blatant, you know, just not trusting, that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. But this advice that Bond received from King kind of ties into him and Ram. I feel like King is very good at giving advice, but he doesn't take it himself. So when King went out and tried to get some meds and he ends up collapsing on the steps at the infirmary, and Ram finds him, takes him back to the tent, and they basically, Ram tries to comfort him. King was cold, so Ram tries to comfort him by, you know, providing body heat. And immediately King was a little bit more on the uncomfortable side, because he has yet to accept his feelings. And King has this habit of, when he has to tell something to someone and he knows that it's going to negatively affect them, he has this habit of closing his eyes and not looking in their general direction. So that's what he did. He's laying there, closed his eyes, not looking at Ram, and he knows him telling Ram to be with his friend, and he's gonna be with his friends, and he doesn't need to take care of him, kind of hurts Ram in a way. I don't think it hurts him. I think it definitely like hurts Ram's feelings, because it's like, oh, so you don't want me to take care of you. But in the back of Ram's head, he knows it's because King feels a little bit more uncomfortable with, you know, the advances that Ram has made, just because Rom knows that King is feeling a type of way, and King knows Rom is feeling a type of way. They know, they just don't want to express it to, well, not really express, they just don't want to admit it to each other. You can see on Rom's face that it hurts him, and of course the next day they are distancing themselves as well. So who knows what's gonna happen there. I've seen some things, you know, on Twitter and things like that. Apparently these are from the pilot, so it may not even be the case. But of course we move on to the biggest thing, which is Bon and Doan actually breaking up. Doan basically said that, hey, if I can't trust you, why are we even together? You shouldn't lie in a relationship. Which right there just tells us that, again, Doan values trust in a relationship over anything else. And just tell the truth. Just say what needs to be said. I may be mad right then and there, and I may take a little bit of time to forgive you, but at least you told me the truth. And I think that's what Bon's mistake was this whole time. He had a chance to say something and he just didn't. But guys, that's gonna be it for Geared Up today. I hope you enjoyed this review of episode 13 and my thoughts on it. This episode definitely had a nice pacing, I will say, in my opinion. I don't like things that are very, very slow burn. Well, I'm lying because I watched season 10 and I liked it. I don't prefer things that are slow burn, but if they're good and they're slow burn, then that's a different story. But the pacing of this episode was very, you know, not quick to the point, but straight to the point. If that makes sense in any type of context. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this review. If you would like more things like this, leave a comment down below. Also, don't forget to hit the like button on this video. Also, if you are new to the Seay Bear family, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well as that bell notification so you know whenever I upload. And don't forget to follow Jen, Jesse, and Lay. Jen with Jen's views and reviews, and Lay and Jess on Thoughts of Why. Again, I will link everything below. Make sure you check them out. And guys, that's gonna be it for today. Make sure you follow me on social media at JordyC on Instagram and Twitter, and I will see you guys.